To welcome you all on behalf of Dean Mike Salt, who couldn't be with us and sends his regards to every one of you. And those of you who have attended these meetings know that Mike is a very strong believer of global education, study abroad, and many other international issues, and he never misses these events. And today was a very special double booking on his part, so he couldn't be with us, but sends his best regards to all of you. This event is organized by our student organizations, International Business Association, as well as the ASI, the Associated Students Incorporated. These organizations are great for professional development and creating future leaders in our society. So all of these, ASI, for example, as many of you may know, or some may not, is a multi-million-dollar business and completely managed by students. And this is a wonderful experience that not very many college students have in their portfolio for the future. So again, I would like to welcome you all, and the Consul General and all the guests. And I would like to ask Armando to come in. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming here today to our annual Consulate series with our special guest, our special Canadian guest, James Villenueve. And in the past, we've been thankful to have Brazil, Germany, India, Japan, and now that we have Canada, our #1 partner in the world, it's just a blessing to have, and I want to thank you again for coming. If you guys are familiar with Canada, from the Yukon to Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada stands really strong as our #1 trading partner. And in the past, it's been a parallel partnership since our 1989 US-Canada Free Trade Agreement, which has been a successful impact on our trade and economic integration here in our country and theirs. Every year, I don't know if you know about this, but every year we buy 3/4 of Canada's product merchandise. And they're also our #1 foreign supplier of energy, which includes gas, oil, and electric power. This partnership is important to us as a nation, and as so effective for our future business as a country and their country, we really rely on these alliances and our partnerships to have a strong, successful, prosperous future. And as you all know, technology, communication, and transportation is becoming a lot more effective, which makes the world a smaller place now. So that being said, as we're in the process of seeing globalization from the beginning, I don't know if there's any 90s babies, but we've been experiencing this globalization going across the world, which makes it so important for us to keep on working together, to keep being united, and for future's sake, we have to continue these partnerships and kind of remain strong in harmony and unity. And for the future, guys, it's in our hands. As students, we're here to lay out a nice foundation for future years to come. So with Canada being here, I'm so thankful for them, and I cannot wait to see everything that's going to happen in our lives, as far as from classrooms to boardrooms. And you guys will know we're going to see Canada so much more in the future. So now I would like to bring up Consul General of Canada, James Villenueve.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. I was told the students would show up because there was free food, not because the Canadian guy was there. I'm selling myself short. I see the Ducks jersey over there, so don't beat up on the Jets too badly. I was at the game on Saturday night with my 14-year-old son, and we were sitting amongst all these Canadian Jets fans. They were sadly disappointed when they left, but it was a great game. First of all, thanks for having me. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself before we start. But first of all, I'd like to introduce my colleagues that are here. Naomi, you can raise your hand. She works with me in the consulate. Terry is here. Terry leads our immigration group with Amy in the back. And they actually came along because we very much like to sell Canada and encourage you that at one point, if you ever thought of studying in Canada, you can do that. You can also think about working in Canada. And if you ever do that, no different than if we work here, you have to get visas and permits. So we're here to help, and they can give you some information after the presentation if you're interested. I was appointed as Canada's Consul General in February of 2014. Before that, I worked in the private sector, so I was a business person. I was actually a global business person and worked in different places. I started in Canada. I was in the beer industry too, so there you go. What a higher calling from beer to government, I'm not sure. But I worked for, and I was part of a business that became global from something that was very local, and now you actually see a bit of a trend to some local things with craft beers. But at the time, I was with a big Canadian publicly traded company, and I had worked my way up to a pretty senior level. In fact, I was on the management committee of the company. I was 38 years old, so I was quite happy with what I accomplished, and all of a sudden we got acquired by a Belgian company. So instantly, I became global because I had masters in Belgium that we were now reporting to, and the whole thing progressed, and then we consolidated again with a Brazilian company that became a Belgian-Brazilian company, and in all of that I ended up going to Brussels, Belgium. So I headed up the corporate affairs group, which is all the media, government affairs, corporate social responsibility, everything for the global company in Brussels. And it meant traveling all over the world to different places, China, Russia, Brazil, you name it, where we had businesses. And to think globally, I grew up in a very small little town in rural Canada. You had to learn to accept different cultures, accept different people, try different things, be open-minded. And the fact that you're here right now and studying global business, I think, is going to suit you well no matter what happens to you in your careers going forward. And then the final part of this jigsaw puzzle is we acquired Anheuser-Busch, so Budweiser in the United States. And I was one of the people that went in there. And I told a story today to the Chamber of Commerce where we were in a room, and my wife was in New York looking at apartments because we were about to move to New York. We were opening a global office there. And the CEO called me, our CEO of the beer company, is a Brazilian guy, called me and said, "Can I talk to you?" And he goes, "Look, we spent $52 billion buying Anheuser-Busch. I got to get some people into St. Louis." And he said, "And you look and sound American." And I said, "Well, I didn't know if that was a compliment or not," but I said, "Compared to you guys, yes, I do." So that was the part of my global business career, and I retired and was appointed here and serving my country now in the United States, which is a great honor to do. So without further ado, let me get into this a little bit. I'm using some slides here with some notes, so I just want to make sure that I get some of our statistics correct as we go through here. But okay, let's talk a little bit about Canada, some pictures of Canada. You may be familiar with a few of these things. We have our dog sleds, we have our beautiful lakes, our pristine Niagara Falls on the right, our Mounties on their horses, and from our apartment buildings and our polar bears. These things do exist, but they're kind of stereotypical of what people think at times of Canada because of our winters, et cetera. But really, Canada is very much a diverse place with great urban centers, the cities of Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. There's some of great world centers. Every time I go back to them, I'm amazed at how, generally speaking, how well they run, how clean they are, how urban, how safe they are. Just great places. And specifically for young people, there's an urbanization going on in our major centers where people are moving into the cities and really launching their careers. We also, just as a statistic, 50% of our population have a tertiary college or university education, so it's a very highly educated workforce, which means there's lots of talent there and people that are growing their careers in different industries. We also have some very recognizable brands. Of course, Cirque du Soleil in the bottom just did a major acquisition today with the Chinese pension fund and some others. But a great story, Cirque du Soleil, was a bunch of street performers in Montreal that were literally panhandling for money, and a guy named Guy Laliberté, I actually studied this. I went to Harvard and studied a business case transformation piece, and he did for the circus he took everything people didn't like about the circus, plus he added in everything people liked and created Cirque du Soleil, which became a big global success story, employing thousands of people. Smart technologies, lots of technological advancement, places like the University of Waterloo, they're cutting edge, companies like BlackBerry and others that have led the way in different forms of transformation of technology. IMAX theaters, if you've ever been to one, that was created in Canada. And if you've ever traveled on a train or a plane, you may have touched on Bombardier, have producing trains, high-speed rail all over the place, subways, buses, in addition to the space agency, the Canadarm. The Canadian Space Agency is actually working on the James Webb telescope, which is being built over by the airport, which is going to be launched in 2 years. It's going to be the most technologically advanced telescope in the history of the Earth. The scientists over there will tell you that's at Northrop Grumman. I said, so what does this mean? I asked the scientist when I was over there, and he said, well, every single textbook on the planet is going to be rewritten in 2 years when this goes up, in terms of its ability to date the world and what's gone on. So Canada heavily involved in that as well. We have a lot of well-known Canadians, too. Don't boo on the last one. We actually sent them to you. You can keep them. But of course, Chris Hadfield, he's an astronaut, and he had the longest term in space, the longest, I guess, he lived in space longer than any other person. And he recorded daily. He did a lot of broadcasts. He recorded music in space, and he's actually, one of the things that came out of his travel in space was that he's suffering from osteoporosis right now. He's only in his 50s, and it's one of the things they figured out for long-term space travel. That's one of the problems. Now, this is reversible, fortunately, but so the next series of space experimentations are going to test it out, and they're trying to figure out what does it mean to the human body and these connections. So he's a really amazing individual. He's a university professor in Canada now at the University of Waterloo. Rachel McAdams, I saw her the other night at the Fleetwood Mac show. She was there with Colin Farrell, and she was there, and I said hello to her. She's a really great Canadian. Arcade Fire, band from Montreal. Russell Peters is a Canadian comedian. There's probably, if you like comedians, you're probably going to touch on a Canadian at one point or another, whether it's John Candy, Mike Myers, Martin Short, Dan Aykroyd, Russell Peters now. I think Canadians don't take themselves too seriously, so we end up with this great group of comedians that come down here. Of course, Gretzky practically reinvented hockey, and the Beebs himself. So we have them all over the world. There's probably a Canadian living next door to you and you don't know it. And this is Canada itself, and as Armando said, it's a huge piece of geography. It's bigger than the United States. It's actually the second biggest landmass in the world. And it's spread over 10 provinces and 3 territories in the north. Approximately 80% of Canadians actually live within a 300-mile radius of the United States. So everyone lives on the southern borders. You can see the major centers. But what's interesting about the north in Canada is what traditionally had been a very difficult and challenging place to live and work. Resources have been discovered all over the place in the northern parts of Canada. And my wife used to work on a diamond project here. A guy named Chuck Fipke figured out that the rock formations in the Northwest Territories were exactly the same as South Africa. And so he went out and staked out all this territory. People thought he was completely crazy. He staked out all this territory up in the north. And then they discovered diamonds, the grade of whatever you would find anywhere else in the world. So there's now this massive diamond industry going on up there again. And God knows what else is up there. The winters are very harsh living up there, but we've actually created a third territory called Nunavut because we're trying to get more development. Plus, with some of the global weather changes, the ability to navigate the northern passages are becoming much easier. Plus, there's advancement, obviously, in shipping. And for those of you that are studying logistics, the ability to move across the top of North America is becoming easier and may create new trade routes for people down the road. So big country, spread out. The province of Quebec is the primarily French-speaking one. We're an officially bilingual country. About 25% of our population has French as its first language. But then the other unique part about Canada, not too dissimilar from the United States, is we're a country of immigrants. So we are over 200 languages spoken in Canada, English and French being the predominant language, but you can go to a place like Toronto and find that 50% of the population was born somewhere else, people from all over the world. And we really coexist well. There are not racial strife and issues that you might see in other places. People generally do get along. And we became a country. The place was discovered. We had our indigenous populations there for thousands of years. But then you had the Europeans coming in mass in the 1600s, very similar here, French explorers, British explorers, others coming to Canada. We actually formed the country through a process called Confederation, where 4 of our provinces got together in 1867. So it's not that old of a country per se. We're a constitutional monarchy, so we actually have the Queen as our head of state, the Queen of England. And we have a parliamentary democracy, so basically very similar to the British system. We have an election, you're elected in your riding or your constituency, and the political party who gets the most members of parliament forms the government, which is the same in all the British democracies. And that is the House of Commons. And then we have a Senate, which is appointed by the Governor General or the Prime Minister, the head of state being the Queen. And we have a Governor General in Canada who represents the Queen in Canada. And a little factoid for you, the Stanley Cup was given to hockey by the Governor General of Canada. This is the Lord Stanley of Prestwick. So there you go. When the Ducks raise it, you'll know. You'll have good trivia for your friends. And of course, the head of our government is the Prime Minister, currently Stephen Harper. And we're going to have a federal election in October of this year. So Canada and the Southwest, we actually, I just showed the breakdown of the country. We have consulates, we have 15 consulates in the United States, or 15 offices, plus an embassy in Washington. So the territory that I'm responsible for, or our team's responsible for, is the Southwest. So we have Southern California, Arizona, Nevada. And just talking about trade, Armando talked about it earlier, there's almost $2 billion in trade done a day between Canada and the United States, $750 billion per year. There's never been a trading relationship between any two countries in the world like this. And we've had free trade agreements in place. We had a free trade agreement with the United States. Then we joined NAFTA, which was a free trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. That's designed to remove all tariffs on goods that go between the 3 countries. And it really gives North America a platform for growth as compared to China or India or other places that we like to say in our own neighborhood we can trade and grow together. In Southern California, Nevada, there's of course 31 million people. There's probably close to 1 million Canadians living here. And I would challenge you to ask around amongst your family and friends and find out if anybody knows a Canadian. I guarantee you will find one. There's not a single day that goes by where I do not meet somebody that says to me, my wife's a Canadian, or my brother-in-law is Canadian, or we have cousins in Toronto, whatever. So there's real strong connections between the two countries, yet there's not a identifiable group like you would see Koreatown in Los Angeles, where there's identified groups who are kind of all over the place participating within the society. And then of course California is the 7th largest economy in the world. And then the Los Angeles region, I was mentioning to somebody earlier that why it's important is it's important to the whole world, and as a result you've got the 2nd largest consular corps in the United States, meaning people like me from basically every country in the world have bases in Los Angeles because of international trade and the importance of California and Los Angeles to the world. And then Canada's the 5th largest source of foreign direct investment into California, so actually spending money here to help grow your economies. And then Canada and California, total trade between Canada and California is about $45 billion, and approximately 1.2 million jobs here are directly related to trade in Canada. And you think of things like we're your largest purchaser of agricultural products. We have obviously cold winters. We import fruits and vegetables from California on a regular basis, which is a great trading relationship. We purchase a lot of California wine. We purchase a lot of California computers, California cell phones, you name it. And then there's also goods and services that are moved between both places as well. So it's a great, vibrant trading relationship between California and Canada. And then just a little comparison between the two economies. It's ironically, they're very similar. The entire country of Canada and California are very close in GDP, approximately $2 billion each. And then the LA County region has $948 billion in trade, and then you've got some of our provinces, British Columbia, Alberta, and Quebec equals to that. So very similar size economies and complementary in many ways. And then some of the Canadian companies that are operating in Long Beach, Circle K, Saputo Cheese, RBC Wealth Management. You may not have heard of RBC, but if you have ever heard of City National Bank, RBC just purchased City National Bank, and that deal is about to be closing soon. So you'll probably see a lot. RBC is the largest company in Canada. It's a major Canadian bank with lots of resources and wealth. So I think that's going to be an interesting partnership. And they made that purchase. One of the reasons they did it, Canada has a huge and growing film and television industry in Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and obviously Hollywood being the capital of television entertainment in the world. There's great synergies that are going to go on between the two in terms of how that's going to work. Valiant got a lot of newspaper coverage here with its attempted acquisition of one of the companies here. Did not happen, but they're a significant player and employer in the area and will continue to grow as well. It's a great company producing pharmaceuticals that are sold and marketed globally. And then I mentioned agriculture. Again, you put it in perspective, Canada buying twice as much agricultural products as any other country in the world, so it's a very important customer. California exporting $4.1 billion to Canada, including fruits and vegetables and nuts. 80% of the strawberries in Canada are bought from California, as an example. Lots of vegetables, alcoholic beverages, which most of it is wine, prepared fruits and nuts, and breads and pastries. But you import a lot from us as well, so it's not just Canada buying everything. This is stuff you would buy from us. Canola, our Western Canada is very much it's a prairie that produces a lot of grain, so a lot of that's brought here. Fresh and frozen beef products, canola oils, breads and pastries, and fresh and frozen pork that gets bought and consumed here. So great trade in agriculture. Energy. Anybody heard of the Keystone Pipeline here? Maybe a little bit. Gets a lot of talk here. The president actually vetoed it. The Congress and Senate passed it, wanted to build it. It was going to run from here, which is where the oil sands are, down through all the way to the Gulf. But I put this slide up just to show you that there are already, these are almost 80 pipelines that cross the border now that go both ways. So trade and energy between Canada and the United States has been going on for forever. And there's a whole network of trade. There's actually the only place that the United States can actually export energy, oil and natural gas in the world is to Canada. So there's an exception to this. You can't ship it offshore, but you can to Canada. And then obviously lots of it coming down. In fact, the oil imports in the United States right now are about 30% of the oil. And we like to say that, in a perfect world at one point, we'll be off fossil fuels. It's probably not going to happen in our lifetimes, but we can reduce them. But to have a secure source of oil from Canada versus some of the other places in the world that aren't so secure, and in fact some of them are not friendly to the United States, it's a great place to have this. And we have it's the third largest oil deposit in the world, which is just up in Alberta in Canada. So we have a lot of it. We also just hydroelectric power, just to point that out, that we're fortunate in Canada to have a lot of water as well, something I know that you're struggling with here. But a lot of our water flows and moves quickly, which is perfect for generating hydroelectric power. And on the eastern coast of the United States, about 70% of the hydroelectric power that's used in states like New York and Massachusetts is coming down from Canada. And the best part about it is it's renewable. It's just water that's continually flowing, so there's no GHG emissions with it. It's just water that moves. So we're very much partners in this together, and I think it's a good thing for our businesses, for our citizens to be able to have this access to energy. And then just to talk a bit about greenhouse gases, because we are sensitive to this. Canada is obviously a smaller country. Our greenhouse gases are about 2% of the world's production. Clearly, the bigger emitters are the United States, China, some other places. We generate a lot of it through a lot of it is transportation on our greenhouse gases. With a country as big and as wide as we have to transport a lot of our goods, so that creates a lot of it. But we're working on reducing our greenhouse gases, and we've had treaties, and the United States announced a fairly significant greenhouse gas goal with China. We have the same numbers per capita, and that these greenhouse gas emissions and treaties we've been working on. The other thing in the oil sands up in Canada is they're spending lots and lots of time to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of extracting that oil. There's some of the top scientists in the world are working on that as well. So it's a picture that can improve, and that Canada is committed to trying doing a better job here as well. Now, one of the places to do business, and we're quite proud of this, Canada really is an entrepreneurial economy, and most of the jobs that are going to get created in your lifetime will be by small businesses, and you need to be able to create an environment where it's accommodating the small business. And that's everything, not just in terms of lower business taxes, but an attention to regulation, to things that can help small businesses grow. Canada is very aware of this. We're ranked #1 in the G7 as the best place to invest and do business. Ranked #1 in the G7 as the easiest place to start a business. Our banking system, I mentioned the Royal Bank earlier, and I was talking to some of the guests at my table. Canada didn't have a banking meltdown like you would have seen here in the United States when the economic crisis happened. Our banks were highly regulated, and it's actually, a lot of Canadians would complain about the banking system being too regulated, but it actually turned out to be a really good thing when the meltdown happened, that we had very few foreclosures on mortgages. A lot of Canada was hurt by this, but not nearly as bad as what we would have seen in other parts of the world, so we're very fortunate there. It's also a very honest society. We just don't, our public institutions are very, when you deal with them, you know you're going to get a non-corrupt situation. If you invest somewhere, your money's going to be safe and protected. So it's just a great selling point. You know, not so much to the United States, but when we're dealing with other parts of the world where, you know, if you invest in Russia, you take what you get. If you invest in Canada, you know it's going to be safe and secure. So that's one of our pitches that we use around the world. Education. As I mentioned, we among the top 3 OECD countries in spending per capita on public secondary educations. The public schools in Canada are actually quite good. There is a private school network as well, but I was also on the board of Teach for America when I was here, and some of the schools that I went to, it was hard to go into, because you look at it and go, boy, some of these kids just are going to struggle. It doesn't mean all public schools are bad. In fact, my kids, you know, have gone to public schools. I went to public schools. But Canada really is, there's a sense that that's important for us as a society, and we act that way, so we're quite proud of that. Consistent high quality of education across the country, academic credentials valued worldwide, stimulating an innovation research environment. You know, 4 of our universities are in the top 100 of the world. Business schools that are par excellence. I used to do recruiting, or was part of a recruiting team for my past job, where we would go to some of the top universities in the world. And what we found with the Canadian universities, we hired a lot of students out of the Canadian universities. One, they were good students, but they also were global. They may have had parents from different parts of the world. They may have had multiple languages. They were interested in what they were doing, which generally means that they were adaptable. And it doesn't mean you have to live somewhere else. It's more of a mindset. So we would always hire people, and I can tell you, I look back on it, many of the senior executives are moving through the ranks for our company. My old company came from Canadian universities. And then we bring a lot of foreign students in. So we've had over 300,000 foreign students in Canada. It's also more affordable. So if you want to go to university in Canada, it's going to be probably cost you a lot less if you want to do a graduate degree or something than it might here, and you're still going to get a very good quality. So there's my little pitch. And Terry will tell you how to come and do your graduate degree in Canada. So studying and working in Canada, just to go back on that for a second, we do encourage people to come to Canada. We're working on different visa programs that we can answer questions on, but we're trying to make it easier for you that if you come to Canada to get permanent residency is something that we work on. And I've been dealing with some young entrepreneurs who've set up businesses in places like Vancouver. And if you're starting a business, the last thing you want to be worrying about day to day is, you know, am I here legally? How do I get my papers? What do I have to do when you're actually trying to create jobs and provide value to the country? So we're not perfect. We make our mistakes, but we're trying to get people into the country, and we have ways of doing that to help out. And then, of course, studying. Same thing, we process the student visas in Los Angeles to bring people in, so we're trying to get you to come to school. That is it for my little snapshot of Canada. I kind of ran through it pretty quick. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Do you have to go back to class if you don't ask questions? Or anybody have anything? Yes, ma'am. I see just behind you, Amanda, young lady.
I know you mentioned very, very briefly something about CSR.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that and the importance of that for modern businesses and corporations?
Good question. I'll give you my former business answer, then I'll give you a real-life Canadian business answer related to our government, because there's two. It's very important. I think that people your age, I cannot tell you the amount. I worked with some really, really hard-driving business executives. Most of the senior executives were from Brazil. The concept of corporate social responsibility was not something they were used to talking about or felt comfortable with. We actually changed the slogan of the company to the best beer company in a better world. And the better world part got added, and it was something that they were always apologizing for it at the beginning based on, we're not getting soft, it's about business results, As we started hiring talent, as we went global, there was not a single interview that I was in many of them with the CEO, hiring people for a global management training program. Didn't matter where you were, any part of the world, students would say, what's your CSR program? What are you doing that's broader than just making money? And we had all kinds of programs that we did. So it really became part of people's DNA. I know my kids, like they're doing community service. My son was doing it all day Saturday. And it wasn't like he got himself out of bed and didn't want to do it. He was excited to go and do this with some of his friends. So it's going to be part of the world going forward, very important. I'll link this to the Canadian issues for a second. We have Canadian companies. We're experts in mining as well, and we call it the extraction category. So when you're taking things out of the ground. Miners are great people, but they too are not on the corporate social responsibility at the top of the way they think. They're starting to realize it's important to do that. So we have corporate social responsibility programs that the government helps our industry to learn about what it means. If you're going into a place like, pick a country, Peru, Argentina, to do extractions, you better have some thoughts on what does this mean to the local community, what does this mean to the environment, how are you going to participate in this to minimize the impact you have on what you're doing. it makes good business sense because you're probably going to be able to continue on doing what you're doing, but it's also important that you don't leave some form of environmental disaster, damages your company brand, all the other stuff. So it is important, very important. Thank you. Anybody else? Hermana?
Oh yeah, about how long is the process for permanent residency?
Terry, do you want to answer that?
It's very, very complicated answer because there are so many different residency programs. And it can take a long time, like in the United States, but you'll see the banner that Amy is standing beside for Express Entry. We recently revamped the intake system for the economic streams of permanent residency so that particularly if people have a job offer already, they get booted to the front of the line. We turned that system on January 2nd, and by the end of March, several people were already in Canada as permanent residents. So, like I said, there are some cases that are taking a long time, but it can be 10 weeks now, from beginning to end, if you qualify.
Still some kinks to be worked out, but we're getting there. Yes, sir?
So your slide described that it was a great place for business investment. How heavy are the taxes, especially for someone who's trying to start a small business?
Yeah, the corporate taxes are actually quite low. On average, the federal tax is about 15%, and then there's some provincial taxes that but it'll definitely be below 20% on anybody starting a business. As compared to the United States, where the corporate tax rate here is 35%. So, and that's the struggle Washington's been dealing with. You hear of these companies inverting, where they're actually moving out of the United States. Some of them are doing paper inversions, but others are actually moving to different places for different reasons. Taxes won't be the driving reason behind anything, but Canada made a very, very conscious effort to remain competitive over many years to lower our corporate tax rate. It used to be very high. They're down now at 15%. With a few provincial taxes. The other thing too, on personal income taxes, and I know this because I've lived now in 2 states in the United States, in Missouri and in California, and I would say all in, they're probably comparable. In fact, I would say in some cases it's a little less in Canada, which is not the perception people have going into it. But we also have universal health care in Canada, which you're trying to get to here. We've had it since the 40s in Canada. So when you move up there, you're automatically covered under the healthcare system. And the healthcare system is quite good. It's not a bare bones system. It's got its issues, but it's good for basically anybody there. Plus, as I mentioned, the education. An undergraduate tuition in pretty much, well, it's very similar across the country, is about $6,000 to $7,000. Graduate degrees, maybe 15. So I know here in the state system, the numbers are lower, but if you compare it to if you're going out of state, what it would look like. So for your tax dollar, you get some good value.
You obviously have a great background in finance. What do you see for the U.S. dollar, for the Canadian dollar? What about these two currencies relative to the rest of the world? What's going to happen?
Well, no, don't go out and short the dollar, because what I'm going to tell you, no, I'm kidding. Obviously, the U.S. dollar has been on a major surge around the world, and I think it's reflective somewhat of the economy and the recovery in the economy. I'll talk to the Canadian dollar a little bit. The Canadian dollar, until recently, here's another reason to go to Canada on your next trip. I'm going to save you some money right here. The Canadian dollar was trading, traditionally has traded in the 90-cent range, but it's been all over the map. It was recently about $1.04, so that it was more expensive to buy Canadian dollars. So if you went to Canada, you'd pay a 4% premium on anything you'd pay. It's now at 80 cents. So it's come down significantly versus the US dollar. In some cases, it's linked to the price of oil. So as a major world oil exporter, and with the price of oil now at $52 a barrel from as high as $1.10, there was a significant decline. What's going to happen in the future? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I think the Canadian dollar will recover. The price of oil may stay down, but we're about to, tomorrow, the government's tabling a budget, the federal budget in Canada. They're going to balance the budget. So which is great. Most of the Western economies are not at that stage. Even though we've got these oil problems, it's still a good shape. But if you come to Canada right now, you get a 20% discount on. So plan your trip this summer. You'll have fun. Sir?
So you were talking about balancing the budget, and you also compared the economies of California to Canada. I know California currently is in a bit of debt, and we occasionally have a deficit per year. How's Canada doing with this?
Our debt to GDP ratio is the lowest in the G7 right now. We still have big debt. It's not like we don't have it, but it's being reduced. And the federal government, over the last period of time, since their majority government they've had for 5 years, has had a plan to reduce the deficit, reduce debt, and have infrastructure spending about a third. So it's in pretty good shape. I had our Treasury Board president, who's the person who spends money in Canada, he's a member of the cabinet, and we had lunch with John Chung 3 days ago and had a great exchange on California issues that are here, issues we've dealt with. A lot of talk of management of union costs in both countries, and not, it wasn't an anti-union discussion, it was just with pensions and healthcare, how are we going to manage that in the future, on flow of goods trade. It was a great discussion, and we're going to be exchanging a lot of information, because again, the economies are somewhat similar in terms of their size and scope. So. Yes, sir?
Does the Canadian government offer any kind of opportunities for international students who want to study over there, or any kind of scholarship?
Yeah, I think it's almost it would be a case by case with the universities or the colleges. I don't believe we offer any type of incentive to come in, but the colleges and universities definitely have scholarships, and lots of them. And if you're a good student, I think that's the kind of thing, if you reach out to our office just via email, we can put you in touch with one of the colleges or universities of whatever you might be interested in, and they can certainly provide that to you. They love having international students too, and we talked about this earlier. The dean and I talked about it. International students do a few things for you. One, there is a fee component, so you're going to pay a little more than a domestic student. But I think the bigger thing, and I mentioned it earlier in terms of recruitment, the value of having an international student in your classes, in thought process, in cultural process, discussion. You know, you think of being in meetings, you're talking international relations, and you have a student from Brazil in your class. Well, they're going to know what's going on there. They probably grew up there. So your value as Americans and Americans living in California internationally, I think is very high. You'd be the most popular kid in class. Be like, tell me about California, what are the beaches like? No, just kidding.
Just following on this, for obvious reasons, Canada doesn't seem like a foreign country to many of our students, and we are emphasizing study abroad very much indeed, short-term, semester, a year. But I don't believe I have seen many applications to Canadian from our business school. What do you think or suggest the advantages of having a short term, like a semester?
Sure.
There is no question about the graduate study. Like in my field, one of the top universities, scientists, researchers are in Canada, Waterloo and many other programs. But about the study abroad angle as having an international experience?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a bit of a pitch, because I think that it's an untapped idea. The sexy thing to do is, I want to go to Shanghai, I want to go to Bangalore, I want to go to, one of these emerging economies, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great choices, and they may be beneficial. But when I talk about the sheer amount of trade that's going on between the two countries, and I can tell you right now, if you have an understanding of Canada, there's a good chance that some business that you would do here will have some interaction with Canada. So studying abroad would be advantageous. And it is different. It's not the same place. I can tell you there's not a day goes by that I'm living in the United States that I go, boy, that seems strange to me, which that's what will happen to you if you go up there. So there is expansion of what you would learn there. And in certain sectors, if you're studying logistics and other things, to go to a place where we have, you know, 2 of the biggest railroads in the world, major ports, obviously geographical challenges that we have, you're going to learn a lot. I think you'd find it to be a great place. And on the flip side of it, generally speaking, the language will be English, so it's going to be a relatively easy transition for you, right? If you're worried about going and having to live in India and not being able to speak the language, you're not going to have that issue in Canada, which might mean you adapt quicker. Obviously, it's going to be maybe more affordable, because if you want to see your parents or get back and forth, it's going to be easy, or maybe you don't want to see your parents. But if you do, it's going to be a little easier to get back and forth. And I think it's a bit of an untapped piece, again, given the integration into 2 economies. If you learn about Canada, I think somewhere down the road it's going to be beneficial to you. There you go. Anybody else? One more?
I have kind of a sort of 2-part question addressing global climate change and how it may affect Canada. First, as being the largest buyer of California's agricultural production, do you consider that the drought may affect the way that Canada buys, and also essentially northern Canada thawing out, and how you're saying logistically how trade routes may open? Will that help the economy of Canada?
On the first part, I mean, obviously, everyone's concerned about the drought here. The whole world is. I mean, Canada's for sure. It's not, you know, whenever you have that issue happening, and we are a buyer of agriculture here, big buyer, we're concerned about what happens. People asked us today, we were asked, why don't you just ship water down? We have almost 10% of the world's fresh water in Canada. It's just not a simple thing to do, and it's probably not as cost effective as figuring out how to desalinate here or whatever else you may do. But it is a concern, and Canada is very well aware of climate change. We probably see it a little more than others because, however, we always use the term climate change because we had the coldest winter in our central part of the country that we've had in 50 years this year. So if you talk to somebody in Montreal and say, you know, you're worried about global warming, they're standing in 5 feet of snow and freezing. They're going, what are you talking about? But there are different patterns that are going on, and we're concerned about it. On the Arctic trade routes, it's a combination of, there is some melting going on. At times it's, you know, the Great Lakes 2 years ago completely froze for the first time in 30 years. So it's not always a guaranteed shipping route. There's also much better vessels to cross through. Canadian icebreakers are faster now. They go through that much quicker than others. And could there be shipping routes in the future? Maybe. The big challenge in the north, one of the big challenges is everyone's laying claim to the land up there. So the Russians are up there, the Danes are there, the Americans are there, Canada's there. There's all kinds of this vast territory that people are laying claim to. So how this all works itself out over a period of time will be interesting. But it is an opportunity, I think, for some sort of transit across the north. So do you think you know a lot about Canada now? You want to learn more? Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Canada, you guys, very, you know, a lot of us might not know where we might end up after college, but the one thing I gotta say, Canada is a great place to settle and, you know, spend your life. I had an experience up there in Vancouver, and just the people, the food, the outlet, the nightlife, everything was just so nice and incredible. And we're just so, you know, constantly surrounded by, you know, a lot of Mexican influence down here in Southern California. It's like, whoa, where do you ever see like a Canadian fast food place? So, well, I definitely recommend everyone, you know, get a chance to go up there, see how it is. And there's a lot of companies up there that really are beneficial for us and the world. So using our degrees to the fullest, once again, I'm going to say Canada just might be the place to go. And thank you so much again, Mr. James Villenueve, everybody. Also wanted to thank Omer Bentley, Dean Omer, Dr. Mike Walters, the Regional Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Center of International Trade and Transportation, the Associated Students, Inc., the Associated Business Students Organization Council, the Human Resource Management Association, Boeing, Yanzi, Amazon, and once again, my wonderful IBA e-board. Round of applause for all of everybody. And thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.